A Dream Come True is a short story written by Maureen Lee in 2007. I have chosen to work with the CAPE model, which means comprehension, analysis, interpretation, perspective. Narration plus point of view. The story is told by the author. The events are seen from Margaret Holt's point of view. It is a third-person narrator. The narrator is omniscient because she knows everything about the characters. But the narrator is also intrusive, e.g. pitch 1. You'd never think they'd been married for over 20 years. Here the author gives her own opinion. Narrative modes. The story includes dialogue starting on page 1. Description, e.g. page 4 top. He was charming and handsome, about 6 feet tall. He wore jeans and a leather jacket. Report, e.g. page 15 top. When the film was over, everyone went off to get ready for dinner. The narrator has an objective attitude to the events and the characters. We are told what the other characters think during their remarks. The narrator is reliable only, but on page 99 it says, Harry was in the car seat at the back. He not only managed to undo himself, but he also climbed on the front seat and dialed 999 on my mobile. He's only 3. This is hard to believe because of his young age. The story takes place in England in the present. The story is imaginary and it takes place partly in Liverpool, partly in Brighton. In the beginning we are at the Conference Hotel in Brighton. Then we are in Maggie's and John's home in Liverpool. In chapter 4 we are at the Astral, Maggie's place of work. Then at Tess's house. Later at a restaurant in Bold Street. Several times the story takes place in Maggie's late mother's flat. Maggie and John live in a modern house which is described at page 21. They are probably in the upper middle class. John is a headmaster and Maggie is a travel agent. The setting is significant for our understanding of characters and plot. If there had not been a conference in Brighton, Maggie wouldn't have met Connor. If Maggie had not kept her mother's flat, she would never have found out that John and Mrs. Granger had an affair. The story is about Margaret Holt, usually called Maggie. She is 43 years old. Her parents are dead. Her husband John and she have been married for over 20 years. John is 45 years old and very religious. They met when they were 18 and 20. They have no children but a golden Labrador called Amber. Maggie's best friend is Tess, who has 4 children. Claire, Kirsty, Olivia, Evan. Tess's husband is dead. Olivia is Tess's youngest daughter. Claire is Tess's eldest daughter, and she has a boyfriend, Kieran, who comes from Dublin, and they have a baby daughter, Susie. Maggie works for Astral Travel Agency in Liverpool. Her boss is Hugh Miller, and they have been friends for over 10 years. Maggie is going to a conference in Brighton where she meets Connor O'Reilly. They fall in love with each other. Connor lives in Manchester and is married to Emma, and they have 3 children, Harry, Kate, and Charlie. On page 4 he is described as charming and handsome with blue eyes, 6 feet tall and 8 years younger than Maggie. Felix Anderson is the founder of Buzz, a huge company. He owns an agency in every big town and city. He is quite famous. Jennifer Granger is John's affair, and she is a history teacher at the school. Then there's Olive Bailey, who offers Maggie a job in Noma. No more AIDS. The main character is changing a lot during the story. In the beginning she doesn't think much of herself because her husband never makes her feel pretty or shows an interest in her. On page 63 it says, now she was 43 and had done nothing with her life. When a younger man shows interest, she feels attractive and daring. Page 4. She doesn't regret her affair with Connor. As the story continues, she feels more and more independent. When she finds out that John has also cheated on her, she is very consequent and she leaves John and moves into her mother's flat. The characters are described indirectly by what they say and do. Composition. The story starts in a medias res. It is chronologically organized. We follow Maggie from her meeting with Connor to her moving from John. There are a few flashbacks, e.g. on page 62. She was 18 when she had met John. There are also flash forwards, e.g. on page 21. It says when she thinks of her mother's flat, she'd always secretly hoped that one day she and John would live there. Initial situation. Maggie calls John to tell him that she has arrived safely. Their conversation is completely boring. After that, she meets Connor and they fall in love. Development. On page 39, it is said Maggie hasn't expected to see Connor again, and she is in a way relieved that he hasn't telephoned. But when he calls, she is happy to hear his voice. From now on, they want to meet every Sunday. The turning point comes when they are at a restaurant, and suddenly Connor gets a telephone call from the hospital and is told that his wife was had a car accident. He must hurry to the hospital and he kisses Maggie goodbye. Accidentally, Maggie gets a call from Connor's wife, Emma. Connor has left his phone and Maggie answers the call. After the conversation, Maggie realizes that she can't ruin their marriage. Page 81. Final situation. Maggie finds out that John is unfaithful to her and she decides to leave him. She moves into her mother's flat and she finds out that she is pregnant by Connor. Hints. There is a hint on page 97. They embrace for the very last time, and before Maggie knew it, Connor had gone out of her life forever. At that moment, she doesn't know that she has been with him for the last time. On page 21, we are told that she'd always secretly hoped that one day she and John would live there. So we knew that somehow she might move into her mother's flat. Closed versus open ending. The story has a closed ending. Finally, Maggie's dream comes true. She is going to be a mother, and she has wanted this for so many years. The ending is in a way predictable. We were expecting that she moved into her mother's flat, but we were not expecting her to get pregnant. She sees her parents in the mirror. This symbolizes that her parents tell her that her decisions were the right ones. She is looking forward to her future and to be a mother. The way the story is organized makes it very exciting because things happen that we had not predicted. That John has an affair too is really surprising according to the impression he gives us. He is a religious man. On page 21, Maggie thinks he was a kind man, very gentle, who wouldn't have hurt a fly. Language and style. The language is very easy to read. It's quite simple and informal and standard. A metaphor could be, he wouldn't have hurt a fly, which means that he doesn't want to offend anyone. Themes and message. The title is a dream come true. Before one reads the book, it is impossible to guess what the dream is. The subject in the text is adultery. Because of her affair, Maggie gets what she always dreamed of. In that way, there is a link between the title, the characters, and the events. Themes could be matrimonial dissatisfaction and adultery. The title definitely suggests an interpretation. It could be getting a perfect love life or motherhood. They both do wrong, but John is hypocritical about his affair and blames Maggie when he finds out that she has been cheating on him, while he is so lucky that his affair has not been revealed. The lesson could be an appeal to married people to find their problems and talk about them and try to solve them. Perspectives. Today, there are many women who get pregnant by a donor because they want a child but not a husband. In our modern time, women are independent and strong and can provide for themselves. Recently, I saw a movie called Single in New York. It is about four single girls. One of them doesn't want a relationship, only a child. So she decides to have a child via sperm donor. Like Maggie, she wants a child, but a man is not necessary. For many women, a child is the meaning of life. When Maggie moves into her mother's flat to start a new life, she realizes that she is pregnant. We might consider that a sign of a new beginning for her, symbolized by the child.